Yay. Okay, it's Owning Your Fire, October 10th, 2018. Judy's just going to open the Talk To app to see who's here live. You'll all be here at some point, but who's here live? We had some kerfuffle tonight because YouTube decided to change their interface for the Hangouts on air. And we, of course, only discovered this at 6:30 and had to figure out the new interface. Or actually, technically, Judy had to figure out the new interface. I was just trying to be encouraging. And, you can't find Talk To? Yep. There. Okay. It's being one of those days. It's fall. Hey, fall. Everything gets crazy. Spring and fall. I don't know how you guys are finding it, but the intensity of the change energy is. I don't know if it's because every year to me it seems like the change energy starts earlier and is stronger, and I don't know if that's because I continue to get stronger and therefore I'm more aware of it. It's always been like that, or if it's the world is evolving and there's so much going on and there's so many changes in the world. I'm not sure I buy that because there's lots of places and sites and stuff that say, oh, we're in this big evolution. I think man's constantly evolving. And to me, it's if you say, oh, this is the time of the big change, that's a little bit horror mongering. It's kind of like saying in 2012 the world's going to end. Well, it didn't. And I remember, lots of people asked me before 2012, and I said, I don't see that happening. I don't feel like the world's going to end. I don't feel like we're going to have some kind of big technological pole reversal. Like none of that feels true to me. And lo and behold, it wasn't. And then they said it for another date, I forget. But there's a whole lot of horror mongering that goes on, and I think that you have to step back and say, you know what? We create the experience we choose, and our struggle is it the experience we choose consciously, or is it the experience we choose unconsciously? And what we're looking to do is get connected with the subconscious so we can make our choices consciously. That's always our challenge, if you will. And fall is the time of letting go. So we let go in the fall, and and we step into the new in the spring. They aren't seeing me. We'll try to figure that out. Okay. I'm chatting away and nobody can see me. Tell them to refresh the page of the web page, because if they were on it before we started, they have to refresh it to tune in. Okay. Everybody refresh the web page. Because if they came onto the web page before we started broadcasting, like it won't pick it up when it starts. And we were later than usual starting today. I want to stop it and start it again because that'll give us a different link. That'd be not good, right? So we can leave it broadcasting live and I could come in as somebody else and then you could make somebody else the presenter, because I have another email I can use. Sure. Sure. Okay, now brighter. Now I have to be presenter. Hello, hello? Bet you can't hear me? Hold on, I'll turn the mic off and on. Okay, testing, 1, 2, 3, testing. Dingens. Yay, we are live. Judy conquered the technology, and the technology fought hard. Okay. It is Owning Your Fire, October 10th, 2018. And the countdown is on. Okay, so I started out saying fall energy is being crazy as usual. Fall and spring are the change energies. So fall is about letting go of the old, spring is about stepping into the new, and in between you process. You process, get used to the new in the summer, you get used to what you've let go of in the winter, sorry. So fall is always about letting go. And of course, not everybody knows they're doing that. So people go through all kinds of crisis states. And so it seems like so much drama. One of the things that concerns me is that there's a lot of talk about, the world is going through these big evolutions and, we have to be part of that and you have to understand the evolution you're going through. And I'm thinking, the world has always been evolving and we as people have always been evolving. And whether you're evolving personally or not, that's up to you. Uh, and I don't like this tone. I don't like the tone of the world's going through the big evolution. You got to keep up. You have to step into your power and all this because it sounds like horror mongering to me. So I was saying earlier, before 2012, all these people asked me like, oh, 2012, they're saying the poles are going to reverse and the end of the world is coming. And I was saying, I don't see this coming. This is not what I'm feeling. This is not what I'm getting. And I was right. It was just horror mongering. So, I mean, that kind of horror mongering can be an impetus for change in the sense that it can spur people to make changes that they wouldn't necessarily be in a state that they'd want to make them. But I think that you can make changes by choosing to step into what you want as opposed to running away from things that scare you. We're conditioned to run away from things. We're conditioned to react to fear and use that as our spur. The thing is, you can also do a positive, which is stepping into what you do want. You've heard me say it 1,000 times. The key is to practice feeling what you want to feel. Practice feeling it. I was reading this set of novels The author's name will come to me in a minute, and then I'll tell you. And it's just, I read a lot of fantasy stuff with magic and things like that. And so in this particular set of novels, they had, the culture was divided. It was a pseudo Earth. So they had the Psi people who are psychic, and then they had the changelings who are werewolves and stuff like that. And then they had the humans. And part of what I was reading in these books is that the Weirs had clans, and the clans, the way they treated the children and the way they treated each other was so caring that it was actually hard to read. I found myself going, yeah, well, people are not really like that. People are not really that genuine and that caring, and they're not really that. And I thought, I kind of sat back and went, oh wow, that's interesting, because I'm being presented by this writer. I'm being presented with this ideal, and I'm calling it impossible. And I thought, oh dear, that's not good. Her name is Nalini Singh, Nalini, and Singh is Singh. For anybody who wants to check it out. And I mean, these are, basically light entertainment novels. The thing is, I find that most writers who do light entertainment, often they're hiding really important messages in there. And so she's got her Psi people are kind of like Spock, they don't do emotion, because if a Psi person with strong psychic skills loses control of their emotions, they could hurt people. So they've been trained not to have any emotion. And then they have the changelings who are emotion driven, and they're all about caring and family and caring and taking care of each other. And then the humans who are sort of just trying to cope with all these powers around them. So we're given these models, and she's presenting them as archetypes, and she's saying, oh, look, it could be like this, or it could be like that. And the minute I caught myself saying, I don't believe it, I don't believe that they could form a clan and be this genuinely caring, I thought, oh, there's a whole bunch of beliefs you could clear. So I was working on that, just saying, okay, let's just catch all those places where you think people just won't be that loving, and allow it. What if you allowed people to be that loving? And wouldn't that be interesting? We manifest based on what we believe, and constantly we're challenging our beliefs. So tonight is going to be a night of polar splits. I said if you wanted to do anything in particular, send it to me. Only one person did. Ghislaine sent me a terrific link. I'm going to just look up the name of the doctor. She sent me a YouTube link for this guy who's a psychologist, and he was just brilliant. I found myself watching more than the link that she had sent me. And sorry, I should have thought of looking this up before I got on here. Let's see. Okay. No, I don't see. Oh, here it is. Dr. Alan Shore. So it's Alan, Allan, and Shore is Schore. So if you go on YouTube and look up Dr. Alan Shore, he has some cool stuff. Now, he's a straight psychologist. That's what he does. But he writes a lot about, he speaks a lot about trauma and reactions to trauma. So what he was describing in the link she sent me was he was recognizing that infants were doing dissociation from their bodies because they had trauma. And so when I looked at that, what I found was a whole bunch of polar splits, which totally makes sense to me. So if you remember what happens with a polar split is you end up with option A or option B, and they're split, and you can't see anything in between. You can't see any other choices. It's a kind of a black and white choice. So you're either impulsive or hesitant. You're either doing the task or you're abdicating. There's all these different things. And what happens is you get choice A or choice B, and anything else is not available to you. And you don't choose to go back and forth between them. You go back and forth between them because you're in reaction. So what we do when we heal a polar split is we use campfire. We call out the two ends of the split, and the chasm forms, which is and I'm describing this visually because It's the easiest way to describe it, not because it's how you would experience it, but what's happening is that chasm represents, that's the part of you that's broken and wounded. So in the chasm, if you will, is the wounded you. So what we do is we go down to the bottom of the chasm, we put a fountain of light, we let the light fill the chasm, and in the process, recover the parts of you that are damaged and heal them. So then the next step is to evolve those parts because they come up out of the chasm closes. Now they become available to you. We evolve them because we've done a lot of work, and these parts of you have been trapped. They haven't done that work. So you evolve them to your current state, and then you integrate them. This could take time. It's okay for it to take time. What I want to do is specifically go after polar splits that come from dissociation. And so what this guy was talking about is he was saying, even in infants, he will see that the child goes into a kind of a shock state and dissociates from its own body. And that is it's a common threat reaction. In fact, it's a freeze and hide reaction that you do this dissociation. That's the same thing as, the rabbit being chased by the predator just shuts down and freezes. I've showed you that YouTube video of the animal that gets caught by I think it was a cheetah, and just lies there. And then suddenly the cheetah gets distracted and it gets up and runs away. Well, it looked dead until it got up to run away. So I want to go after the places where we have parts of ourselves that are damaged and wounded because of a dissociation like that. So they're all going to be connected to trauma. So we're going to set up a whole bunch of protection and comfort around this because, not trivial stuff. Do we ever do trivial stuff? I don't think we do. Okay, so let's start by paying attention to your breath. Let your breath be slow and low. And let's wrap light around you here and now and set that ball spinning. And let's put comfort and love and acceptance and approval in that light and just soak in it for a little bit. Just let that spin through you and around you and soak into your tissues and soak into your energy. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to do the nesting versions. So like the Russian nesting dolls, stack up the younger versions of you. So right from that moment of conception, stack up the infants, the child selves, the teenagers, the young adults, all the versions of you up until today, and keep that light spinning through you and around you. And now let's do the other ball that goes the opposite direction. So like a hula hoop, this goes, you spin them either left or right, not up or down, because up or down becomes kind of vacuumy for your energy. It's not good. So whichever direction you automatically did for the first ball, put the other one going the other way and put the other one inside this one. And so what we're doing with the second ball is we're doing the frequency that neutralizes the old energy. So anytime you hold trauma, and we don't do that intentionally, but it's a coping mechanism. We have old trauma, it's old energy kind of stuck in your body. And it doesn't belong to today. It's just kind of stuck inside because at the time you didn't know what to do with it. So for instance, when you're a little kid and you don't feel like you have any authority, you have to conform, you just kind of poke it away inside you because you don't know what else to do. So if we release this, it's not to bring it out through you. So you're like, you don't want to put your body through that emotion from so far ago because it was traumatic. Why do it again? It doesn't make sense. You're going to hurt yourself if you do it again. It was a trauma the first time. So what we do is we basically neutralize that energy because it doesn't belong to today. So the way this works is physics has a sine wave. So a sine wave goes up and down like that. Like, like kids draw hills. They go up and down, up and down, up and down, or camel humps, if you want to picture it that way. So in physics, if you draw a line that's opposite, so when one goes up, the other goes down, so they cross each other up and down, it will literally cancel out. This causes problems when someone's trying to set up a sound system, because if they put the speakers the wrong way, they can literally get a dead spot in the room where you can't hear the music or the sound effect. Because if the frequencies cross each other, like literally they cancel each other out, there's no sound there. I think that's cool. The cool thing about it for us, for our energy, is you've got this old energy inside you that's only there because as a child or as a younger version of you, you didn't know what to do. You didn't know how to deal with it. So you just kind of poked it inside you. And rather than bring it out through you, we want to just neutralize it, because you have those experiences. You don't need to feel it again. And you're an adult now. So you have different resources. You have different wisdom. You've come a long way. And so you don't need to feel that pain again. And neither does the child inside you. The child inside you was hurt once. You do not need that child to be hurt again. So think of this as protecting the child inside you and releasing them at the same time. Everything that's happened in your life, whether you remember it or not, everything that's happened has made you the person you are today. And, some memories are not actually worth retrieving because they're unpleasant. Um, I don't want to remember every day of kindergarten. And there's other things I'm probably sure I don't want to remember even more than that, but I certainly don't want to remember every day of kindergarten. And so it's okay to say, I am who I am. And what we're working on is choosing who you are. Choosing who you are. I promise you that beating yourself up by going through old emotion is the opposite of choosing who you are. So this is a time for letting go. So let's look at letting go. This is a decision you need to make for yourself. Are you willing to let go of old pain and trauma that's being held inside you, partially in your body, partially in your energy, or things that are dissociated that you've sometimes you'll take it and kind of hang it out there in your energy outside your body because you can't deal with it. Wherever it is, however you've done it, are you willing for it to be gone? Are you okay being able to define yourself, having survived that, having had the wisdom to deal with it and to cope with it, and now to be free to make a choice from who you are today? So let the balls spin through you and around you, the outside ball with all the comfort and the love, and the inside ball with the neutralizing, so that whatever needs to go, it can just be neutralized, and then it's gone because it's neutral. It's no longer a burden inside you, or frankly a burden outside you, wherever you've put it. Okay. So I know I'm talking a lot in saying I'm talking in a way that assumes you know what a polar split is, and you've done a campfire with polar split before. If you have questions or if you need a refresher, just say the word. Type it in, Judy will read it. And sometimes that happens because it's like you could have done 1,000 polar splits, and in this moment it's like, okay, I'm in shock now, I can't remember my own name. All that stuff happens. We're okay. Whatever you need. Whatever you need. Let those balls float, spin through you and around you. Lots and lots of comfort in that outside ball. Comfort, acceptance, approval, and love. Lots of comfort. And think about letting that outside ball have the certainty that you are defined by choice, and releasing being defined by trauma. It's interesting because having the trauma brought you to a place where you have the courage to make a choice. And give yourself a pat on the back for that, because it ain't common. It ain't common. All you got to do is look around you. Most of the people around you don't want to know. So what we do in campfire, so yes, question for the refresher. What we do in campfire to release a polar split is we go into campfire, we call out the kind of two ends of the split, sometimes there's more than two, and a chasm will form in the campfire. And we put a fountain of light at the bottom of the chasm, and that light will fill up the chasm. It will release the part of you that's been trapped by this wound, and it will heal. And then as that part is released, the chasm will close. And then the next step is we have to evolve that part because it's been trapped at that stage, if you will, and hasn't done all the healing work that you've done. So we evolve it and then we integrate it. So what we're doing now with the double balls is we're just kind of setting up to go into the campfire. So we've set up with the double balls to neutralize the trauma and also to have all of those stacked up younger versions of yourself so that whatever you do is done for all of those versions of you. If you didn't stack up the child selves, if you didn't stack up all those younger versions of you, like you're still going to do healing. It just has more layers. So what I'm doing by stacking up the child selves before we go in campfire is I'm saying, let's do it for all of these versions of myself. Let's kind of take it through all the layers at one time. And I'm doing that because you guys have muscle. You know, like I get tired, frankly, of doing, I was doing some work the other day and I realized, oh, this is a mom thing. Here we go. It's fall. There must be yet another mom thing to release. And I was just thinking, like, it's the never-ending mom thing. Here we go. Surprise! It's a mom thing, uh, and we get tired of it. So this is a way of allowing yourself to go deeper. Now, of course, that's more intense. Of course, you need to do detox. Of course, you need to own the fact that you'll be processing that for quite some time, and that's okay. Like, you're still going to do the processing. The thing is, I'd rather do it the intense way. And frankly, if that wasn't your nature, you wouldn't be here. I like to, if I'm going to clean it, just clean it all the way. So keep those balls spinning. And yes, if you forget about the balls, that's okay, because I have balls spinning for everybody and other things as well. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to go campfire and we're going to do woods. Kind of pretty in the fall. And for those of you who are not here where there's fall colors, for those of you who live elsewhere, you can imagine fall colors. So picture a forest with a path, a wide, broad, clear path that goes into the trees, and know that this forest is a place that only you can go. This is a sacred forest. It is a safe place. It is a place for you to discover and explore yourself. When you feel ready, give yourself permission to step onto this path and start walking into the forest. And as you walk along the path, let yourself leave behind the concerns of your day and just go deeper and deeper. Allow yourself to go deeper and deeper into this place of discovery, into this place of personal evolution. Allow yourself to go deeper and deeper and deeper. As you walk along the path, on the left, there is a stream, and the stream opens up into a pool that has a waterfall tumbling into it. And on the right, it opens up into a forest field covered in wildflowers. And in the center of the field, there's a campfire, and beside the campfire is a chair. This is your chair, and it represents the place of your ability to make choices. Sometimes when you get here, there's something else occupying your chair. It could be another version of you. It could be a fear that you have. That's okay. It's up to you to decide if you want to just soak that in light and leave it for a while, or if you can just dissolve the chair and move it to the other side of the fire so that you can sit there. It's whatever feels right for you in this moment. So for now, imagine that you can sit in your chair, and we're just going to soak. We've got these two balls of light spinning through you and around you, And so in this place that's technically inside you, they're also going to spin through you and around you. And we stacked up all those younger versions of you so that all of this light is spinning through and around all the younger versions of you. So let's just kind of be with that as you sit in that chair and be with your awareness that you have a choice. You have a choice. Are you defined by your experiences and your trauma, or are you defined by your choices? Certainly, everything you have lived informs your choices. It's part of who you are. The question is, will you create a life that's an expression of your traumas and pains, or will you create a life that's an expression of your love and potential? So sit with that in your chair. Just give it a moment to just be with that feeling. It's a challenge because so much of our self image is defined by what we have survived, and what we've overcome and what we've lived through. We use words to describe ourselves that are survivor words. I come from this, or I came from that, or I've been through this, or I've been through that. And holding on to that is holding on to a status that comes. And we have a culture that admires woundedness. So having the courage to say, I define me with my choices, and my choices come from the wisdom of what I've lived, that's a huge step out of what people expect in terms of how you define yourself. I find when I travel, people want to tell you their story, and the story they want to tell you is of their woundedness. And I don't tell that story because I'm not interested in it. It doesn't define me. I'm only interested in the choices I'm making and where I'm going. And a huge part of where I'm choosing to go is based on the fact that I can make my life whatever I want it to be. It's not defined by my past. I feel such a huge separation from a lot of the things I've lived. And I mean, it's mine and I lived it. The thing is that it's so not who I am. It's just something that happened in the past. It doesn't define me. And it's a state of mind. It is a personal evolution and it takes time, and that's okay. And I think there's a habit in communication that, if you talk to people, they're looking for status. And so part of how they look for status is they tell you the things they've overcome or their woundedness or whatever. And it's very easy to respond to that by seeking status yourself. And it's very easy to fall into how they will respond. They're going to respond to your woundedness by give you status like, oh, that's terrible or whatever. Isn't it amazing you overcame that? Well, you kind of have to make a decision to step back from seeking that status. Is it really necessary? And does it really mean anything? Because I got to tell you, just because they give you status in that moment doesn't make any difference in how they're going to interact with you, or even if you're ever going to see them again in your life. So it's kind of like you have to think about defining yourself in the same way we do with columning. We use columning to stand true to ourselves in the midst of that ocean with crashing waves of human conflict and stuff. So you're not flotsam when all of these earthquakes and typhoons and things, tornadoes and stuff are happening around you. You're not flotsam to that. You're saying, I will stand true and I will be a source of light. You have to think about that in any interpersonal interaction. In even talking to an individual, are you going to be defined by how they attribute status, or are you going to be defined by who you are? It's an interesting way of being, because we're so used to defining our interactions, by what we've been taught is a source of status. We've been taught to seek status. That's better. And now the interesting thing is, the more you're able to say, I define me by my choices, and this is what I choose, the more you're able to do that, the more you bring that into your life. The more you bring interesting people, the more you bring people who can connect with who you actually are. That's it. Okay. So now let's, this is a little bit different because what we're used to doing with polar splits is we're used to calling out the two ends of a split and then the chasm. So we'll do one that way just because that's the way we're used to doing it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to call out based on the dissociation. So we'll do a simple one the way we're used to doing it first. So the first one will be, we'll call out the part of us that's impulsive and the part of us that wants to do the research and wants to do, check everything and, and is even hesitant, maybe more resistant to change. So we have the impulsive part and the resistant to change part, and a chasm will form between them. And that's sort of a really easy one to understand because you can understand that if you've done things impulsively, you could easily get hurt. And if you've been hesitant and resisted change, you could easily feel regret. So of course you're going to have that kind of parts of you that are wounded from all sorts of things. Everybody's been a teenager at some point, right? And so allow that chasm, allow yourself to be aware of that in however your awareness connects. And understand that chasm holds the wounded parts of you, the parts that are inaccessible because of the wounds, the parts that could make other choices and could balance. It could balance between spontaneity and, doing all the research, if you will, or, holding on to making sure you check everything. All right. So those parts can balance so that you find a way to feel right about your choices. So think about forming that fountain of light at the very bottom of that chasm and imagine that light bubbling. And okay, go down a little further. Think about the very, very bottom. Maybe there's a little crack in the bottom and you need to get down through the crack to find the very, very root of this. And one of the things to remember as that light starts to bubble is that this has been a coping mechanism. It's been a coping mechanism for a very long time in your life. So as that light is bubbling up, one of the things to remember is to have compassion for the fact that you put this coping mechanism in place because you needed it. Because at the time, you didn't have other choices. Maybe you were a child, more likely you were a child, and you didn't have the resources and choices that you have now. You were a dependent. So think about in that light, make sure you put the comfort and approval and love that allows you to recognize that this coping mechanism was valid. And the reason you're safe to let it go is because you are an adult, you can evaluate, and your life is different now. That's it. Allow yourself to feel the truth that you are safe, allowing this to evolve. That's it. You're safe, allowing this to evolve. That's it. Let it go deep. Let it go deep. Let that gurgling light go deep. That's it. That's better. That's it. So let the light gurgle, 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 fill in every crack and cranny. Let it find the parts of you that have been trapped in this chasm and let the light do the work. Let the light heal them and bring them up. Bring them up to the top. Let it light fill this chasm. That's it. Let the light fill the chasm. And what tends to happen is as the chasm fills and these parts of you emerge, there's a huge release of energy because keeping them suppressed has taken a huge amount of your energy. That's it. And so as they come out of the chasm, let that light spin through them and around them to just heal them because they've been holding this for a long time, and to neutralize all that old emotion and all that old pain. That's it. That's it. That's it. Good. 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 Okay. And just think about letting that light neutralize that second ball that spins through, that neutralizes that old emotion. It's really tempting to get caught in these stories, the stories of, what caused this to be. And that is very distracting. I mean, if you're really curious and you definitely need to know, you can go back and do that later. For now, focus on the fact that you're choosing to let it go. You don't lose the information when you let it go. It's part of your past. It's there. You can always retrieve it. What you're losing is the woundedness. What you're releasing is the obsolete emotion and the pain. That's it. So think about letting yourself avoid being distracted by the story and focus on defining you. That's it. Let the light neutralize. That's it. And as it neutralizes, it's kind of like you say, well, let it neutralize and release. Well, there's nothing to release because once it's neutralized, it's just energy. It just flows and goes. That's it. That's it. Good work. Good work. And think about all of those nested versions of you. Think about that same release happening for all of them because it neutralizes for all of them too. So whether they're the one that had the experience or the one that inherited the experience through any of the forms of karma, whether this is genetic karma or spiritual karma or social karma, whatever it is, just think about letting the light neutralize all of that. Let it all neutralize. And once it's neutral, it just flows and goes like all the other energy. That's it. And think about the comfort, the acceptance, and the approval and love spinning through you and around you, and all these versions of you. And so now you have these parts of you that had been trapped by what they were holding, trapped by being the coping mechanism, and the light is spinning through them and around them. Now let the light evolve them because they were trapped. They may not have accepted or integrated all kinds of changes that you've made. So just kind of, it's almost like tuning a guitar. It's like let this light tune them to who you are and who you're becoming. That's it. So all that they're holding gets neutralized. That's it. The chasm's coming together. Beautiful. Closing up. That's it. That's it. It's interesting because I can see it's almost like there's lava underground. There's still light there. So there's still stuff soaking there, and that's okay. It's kind of like it's been there for a long time. So it's just going to soak for a while. The chasm itself is closed. Having light in that soil, if you will, that's a good thing. Light's always a good thing. That's it. And now these parts of you are evolving. And so some of them will integrate and some of them will release because they're not who you are anymore. Or sometimes it's a part of somebody else you took on, like somebody else's attitude or somebody else's fear or somebody else's wound. Sometimes you took on something that belonged to somebody else. So if that's the case, allow the light to let them go with love. If it's a part of you that isn't you anymore, allow them to let go with love. If it's a part that does in fact belong to you, let it evolve. And sometimes you're kind of reeling these parts in from far. It's like what they often call soul retrieval, which I think is a terrible term. Um, but it's like a part of you that you dissociated to the point where you kind of had it out on a line out there somewhere, hanging off to the side so you didn't have to deal with it. And so as they come in, they need more tuning because they need to be tuned to who you are. They need to be tuned to your body. and all of that energy is being neutralized. And so think about whether they need to kind of sit there and cook for a while in this energy. That could be, a minute, a month, a year, whatever it takes, and that's okay. Or if it feels like the light has evolved them and the energy is neutral, and if so, then they can just integrate into you. Just think about what feels right. That's it. That's it. That's it. Okay, good. Let's just breathe and sit with the spinning balls of light going through all those versions of you. Let's just sit with that for a minute. Linda says, right on? Yes, exactly. Right on. We are cooking. We are. Okay, so now this time what we're going to do is we're going to call out. We may have to do this in waves. We're going to, I do stuff I've never done before. We're kind of feeling our way. What we're going to do is we're going to call out all of the polar splits that are held dissociations. So just to give you some context, you dissociate when you kind of check out. So if you ever had one of those experiences where somebody's talking to you, they tell you something upsetting, and you just realize it's the Charlie Brown teacher thing. You can't even hear the words. Or you realize you didn't hear what the person said for the last couple of minutes, and you know you missed something, but you have no idea what you missed. It's like you were gone. Bye-bye. And that's, you went into freeze and hide, you dissociated. Chances are really good that you just kind of checked right out of your body because you couldn't handle it. You did not have a way to deal with it. You didn't feel safe. And so this is rooted in places like, when you're 2 years old and your only defense is to bite someone, and then you get taught not to bite, what you're being taught is to not protect yourself. So what happens is, the culture we live in teaches us not to protect ourselves. So then when something happens that's a threat, we have no idea what to do. So we check out, we go bye-bye. And just like the rabbit that freezes, we don't have a way to act. And we don't even have a way to process information. Okay. So sometimes you'll know you checked out because it's like, oh, I was gone. Bye-bye. So you recognize it when you come back. Sometimes you don't even know you checked out because you got pieces of the information and you don't know you missed stuff. I find that even worse. At least if you know you checked out, you can try and recover by asking questions. It's like, oh, could you clarify that for me? And if you don't know you missed it, it's like you don't even have a way to recover. It's a built-in hardwired coping mechanism, and it comes from feeling like you can't meet requirements. You fall into freeze and hide when you feel like you can't meet requirements. So at some level, you're absolutely unsafe because you don't know how to satisfy the requirements for belonging in whatever situation you're in. Fundamentally, lots of times you're under attack. Lots of times, if someone's criticizing you or if they're asking you to do something you don't want to do or be somebody you don't want to be, you are actively under attack. But our culture says you're not allowed to bite. In fact, you're trained to not say, I don't like this. There has to be another way to do it. What if we find another solution? Or even to allow yourself to come up with another solution that you can propose. I'm trying to think of a way to tell the story. So I had a situation where somebody I know remotely. So I was in a conversation with someone, and the other person came along. I know them remotely. I don't really know them, but they said something that was absolutely a lie. And myself and the person I was talking to both knew it was a lie. And so then off they went. And I looked at her and she looked at me, and I said, "Okay, so I don't believe that." And she said, "Yeah, now what am I going to do? Because if I confront her, it's going to cause all kinds of problems, because this was a person they worked together." And I said, "So what you have to do is give her an out." So you could say, "All right, given that this happened, if it was connected to this thing over here, then it's not a problem. But if it wasn't connected to this thing over here, then there's this other step that has to happen." And that allows them to say, "Oh, it was connected to the thing over here." Now, we both know that the thing over here is not, like, it's not valid. It wouldn't have been the case, but it gives her a way. It gives this other person who works with her a way to backtrack without losing face, because clearly what the lie she said was she was seeking status. There are times when you want to have the confrontation where you want to call them on it, and there were times when that's not the effective way to go. And when someone is in seek for status, when they do something like that where they're lying to seek status, they may not know they're doing it because they don't feel safe. If someone is seeking status, they feel threatened. So, is there any value in that? You kind of have to look at what effect you want to have. So it's a complicated situation. She's going to go, "Oh, that'll work perfectly." Yes. Because what you have to look at is, what effect do you want to have? Do you want to beat them up because they were seeking status? Clearly, they already feel beat up, you know? Um, Sometimes it's important. So it goes back to what effect you want to have. We're we're taught to constantly be in seek for status. We're taught to try and give people what they want, even if it doesn't make any sense. We're taught to not defend ourselves, even when there is a very real threat and it is inappropriate. So what we're looking for as we restore these parts of ourselves is we're looking for the ability to think, to take in information, and to make a choice. Because if you're frozen, you can't take in information. If you're frozen, you can't make a choice because you're frozen. And you're not like, it is a form of defense because it shuts you off from feeling the pain. You go into freeze and hide so you don't feel the pain. It is not a way to fight. And sometimes you need to fight. Sometimes you need to know how to be strategic and to figure out, well, what can I do? How can I, and sometimes you need to get out. Sometimes you need to withdraw. That's okay. Because freeze and hide is a withdraw. It's what we want is the capacity to take in the information and to choose what's actually best for us instead of being shut down so you can't figure it out. Okay. So think about calling out all of these parts that are the knee-jerk reactions, in the same way any A and B that has a polar split between it. These are knee-jerk reactions where you don't think, you just react. Call out these parts that what's in the chasm is a dissociation. So it's a place where you've been traumatized. It's a place where you went into freeze and hide because you didn't have a way to deal. And so that was your coping mechanism. That's okay. Just think about all these parts coming out. And what'll come out today is what you're able to deal with today. This, again, as is typical, it's going to be a good idea to repeat this stuff because you'll get more every time you do it. Um, so allow them to come out. The chasm will open. It's probably one of those kind of, Grand Canyon chasms because it's got multiple things going on here. And you got lots of light spinning through you and around you. Lots of light. And through all those versions of you, lots of light. Let's just sit with the light and just be with it for a minute. And be aware in that choice point that these reactions happened because you didn't feel like you had resources. These reactions happened because you didn't feel like you could meet the requirements at a time when you were a dependent. Whether you were a dependent employee or a dependent child, or dependent because you felt you needed other people's approval, whatever the reason that you felt that you couldn't meet the requirements, the fact is that's what you felt. Right now, you have the capacity to say, I will define me. I will define who I am, and then I choose how I interact with people. You don't have to shove it down people's throats. You choose how you interact with people, and that gives you a different way to cope. Always, you have to think of what's the new way to cope, because if you try and take out a coping mechanism when you don't have another way to cope, it's not going to work. You can't leave yourself defenseless. It's not going to work. Okay, so think about taking the capacity to take in information, to think about how you want to deal with it. Even if you're not sure what to do, at least if you have the information, you can figure it out. You can gather information, you can Google stuff, you can read about it. Like you have ways to figure it out. If you don't have the information, you can't figure anything out. Because if you're just in shock, you're not in a position where you have access to choices. You're busy being in shock. All right. So all of these pieces of you wrapped in light, the light is spinning through and around all of it, and now putting the fountain of light at the very bottom. And you can put more than one if you want. If it feels like it's more efficient, put more than one fountain of light in this chasm and go as deep as it can go. Right down through the cracks, right down through the crannies, way down there, lots of fountains. Put them all in and let them bubble up. That's it. Let the light bubble up. Let the light bubble up. And remember, what's in there is parts of you that have been inaccessible to you, parts of you that have been wounded. And so as that light bubbles up, it soaks into them. As the light spins through, it neutralizes the pain and trauma that they've been holding. The light soaks into them, and it's going to melt the freeze. That's it. And think about this chasm. For the parts of you that have been in freeze and hide, the chasm's probably a great place to hide. Like, they don't necessarily want to see the light of day. So you want to think about wrapping them in all of that love and acceptance and approval. Because you go into freeze and hide when you can't meet the requirements. You need acceptance and approval to feel like you can. If you say, here's all of the acceptance and approval, you can meet the requirements. You've already got the acceptance and approval. So think about lots of acceptance and approval, lots of love. That's it. It's spinning through in those balls. It's gurgling up in those fountains. That's it. That's it. And yes, there's going to be grief. Yes, there's going to be release. That's okay. That's okay. Let the light neutralize the pain, neutralize the trauma, and that will allow the thawing, and that will allow them to feel safe to emerge from hiding. As those chasms fill, these parts of you, they come to the top. They come to the top, and the light continues to spin through them and neutralize, and lots of comfort and acceptance. Judy says, for the past week, oh, so Judy lives in Dunrobin, and the tornado hit Dunrobin pretty hard. So for the last week, she's been driving by the homes in Dunrobin that were devastated by the tornado. She said, at first I was sad, then she was grateful for her good fortune, and now a little bit numb because I can't make it better. And that's it exactly. So you can't fix this. It's okay to let it go. It's also okay to put light on the situation, because that'll help the people who have to fix it, who have to deal with it. It will help them cope. You can't control the outcome. You can put light on the situation. That's it. That's it. Linda says, I can't believe how much I've been hiding in the chasm. And that's all of us. And it's everybody, because Stand a fight, freeze and hide, and run away are hardwired in your brain. They're not choices you make, they're reactions you have. And you go to freeze and hide when you can't see another choice. Well, if you think about it, if you're taught at 2, don't bite anybody, you're taught not to fight. You're taught that early. No, no, fighting's not an option. You will be a good girl. You will do what is required of you. So you're taught comply, which is run away, and it's run away from yourself. So you're taught be who we want you to be, which is the runaway reaction, and you're taught to freeze because you can't you can't access biting. It's been cut off from you. And I mean, that doesn't mean that you have to go to work and bite people. It means because the part of you that would bite is the part of you that would take in the information and strategize and be able to know what to say or be able to know what action to take, to be able to know how to manage someone who is lying because that's their coping mechanism. It's regaining your ability to bite is more than being able to bite. It's being able to think, it's being able to choose, it's being able to play a game. The boys came out Thanksgiving and they have a new card game. It's called Coup, which is COUP. And so for those of you who have the capacity to do that, get the game and play it with people. It is all about strategy. I don't have it yet. I mean, they left it at my house, but it's all about strategy. It's all about understanding the wheeling and dealing other people are doing, and it's quick. It's actually fairly simple. It's complex in strategy, but it's a good way to practice. It's called Coup, COUP. I think they ordered it off Amazon. There's a regular game and an expansion pack if you want to have more than 8 people. I think you need 4 to play it. But that's true if you play most card games because there's a bit of going back and forth. There's a bit of things going on that you have to think about and think about how you're going to interact. And the beauty of playing a card game is that life decisions are not based on this unless you're playing poker in a casino with real money. I don't do that. I mean, people do, but it is a way to learn, right? Pat says, am I avoiding by eating potato chips? You're coping by eating potato chips. You're coping by eating potato chips. That doesn't make it wrong. What is important is that you tell the truth. Like, I don't like what I'm feeling, so I'm going to have potato chips. Okay. It's okay to not like what you're feeling. And as long as you're telling the truth that this is how you're coping, then it's okay to do that. Say, okay, right now, I don't feel like dealing with this. I'm going to have some chips. That's okay. If you do that forever, you'll weigh 400 pounds. And so there's a sort of a natural correction thing that goes on there. It's when do you feel able to look at it? When do you feel able to deal with it? And here's a really important question. What do you need to take care of you so you can deal with it? Sometimes there's things you need to give yourself. Like, so for instance, in the story I was telling earlier, this staff member that was lying does a good job. Generally speaking, does a good job. So you don't want to break that because she was coping. She's coping. It's not wrong for people to cope. What's important is that you recognize they're coping and then you choose how to interact. So I said, this is what you do. You have to give her an out. You have to give her an out and recognize she's hungry for status and decide how you're going to interact with that. You can't always cater to people being hungry for status because it sort of becomes a bucket with a hole in it. You decide, how are you going to manage the fact that they're hungry for status? Sometimes you need to give them some status. And sometimes you have to make things clear cut so they know how to succeed. People need to know how to succeed. Okay. So whatever the situation is that's driving you to the chips, you don't know how to succeed. Sometimes the feeling that you don't know how to succeed is because it's not yours. So if we go back to Judy driving past all these homes that have been devastated, she knows it's not hers to fix. It's still painful to watch other people's pain. So you kind of think, well, what do you need? What comfort do you need for you? What do you need to feel right about you? What do you need? What do you need so that you feel right about yourself in this situation? And that's the key. So if you need chips, all right, have chips, right? It's what do you need so that you can deal with it? What space do you need to think about the strategy? What do you require from yourself to feel right inside you? And that's where you have to go. What do I need? Okay? So all of these pieces of you that have been stuck in this chasm need something from you. Pat says, I think I'm dealing, but I don't know what I don't know. That's why we do this work. That's why you go into these chasms and you find these pieces of yourself. And you can find the story if you want. I think it's a distraction. I think it's more these are the parts of you that are holding the wounds you don't know you have. And it's about being willing to give yourself what you need. So you have all of these parts emerging from these chasms, and they're parts of you that were not accessible before. So if you were trying to find something before, you weren't going to find them because they were down in the chasm and it wasn't time yet. We get to this stuff when we're ready to deal with it. So all of that light is bringing up, it's filling that chasm, it's bringing up these pieces of you that weren't available before. And you got all this light neutralizing all this old trauma and old emotion. That's it. That's it. Judy says, I bought a very soft, fluffy, stuffed bunny rabbit last week, and I didn't realize it was about comfort for the tornado until now. Good for you. See, you got the bunny. That's what you needed. You needed a stuffed bunny. That's what you needed. It's a, it's allowing yourself to give you comfort. And if that's chips, that's okay too. It's saying, what do I need? Okay, so now you've got all these pieces that emerged. You got all this light that's neutralizing. Okay, and let the light evolve them because you've done a lot of work. So let's kind of bring them up to speed. Let's get them tuned. Let's take your time, take your time, take your time. Some of them have been down there for a very long time. Like the psychologist said, he saw dissociation in infants. Wow. And we definitely we so disconnect from our body when we're feeling pain that we can't solve. That's it. So another thing to notice and just be aware of is you see people around you when they have pain they can't solve. The ones who get angry and stomp around and start kind of criticizing everybody and ranting. They're in stand and fight and they're acting like they're fighting. But are they really? Because all that stomping around doesn't actually do anything. It might upset people, like they're venting all this anger. That can be very frustrating to be around, but it tends to be ineffective. It tends to be kind of sword rattling that doesn't really do anything. Okay. And then there's the people who do the runaway. So they avoid or they procrastinate or, they do it wrong because that's an avoid as well. Very passive aggressive, right? Now, the passive aggressive is a stand and fight action. Okay. Doing it wrong is an attack. Um, People who doing runaway comply, they act the part, but they don't actually fulfill the requirements. So that's the runaway. And then there's the people who check out. So it's useful to kind of watch the people around you and what they're doing because everybody does all three. You do all three as well. We're looking at the freeze and hide ones because I find them the hardest to get to. Because if you're frozen, you can't act. And so if we go after those, a lot of times you can catch yourself doing the other ones and work with those. Okay, here we go. Reese says there's a part that just won't come out of the chasm. Okay, put more light on it. And here's what you need to know. The part that won't come out of the chasm wants to stay in hiding. That means she believes there are requirements that are still in place that she can't meet. So ask her, what's the requirement she can't meet? If she can't get out of the chasm with all that light, there's something stuck there, and it's stuck in your beliefs. So she believes that she's unacceptable. Ask her what's the requirement she can't meet. Ah, okay, so it's what do I need to get myself out of the hide? No clue. Okay, so to get out of the hide is to let go of the requirements, right? There is a requirement you have of yourself that the part that's in the chasm, the part that's in hiding, believes you can't meet the requirement. So this could be really like you could have a requirement to be a nice person. I gotta tell you, you need to be able to bite. And so if you think, well, nice people don't bite, then you automatically set yourself up. Like you're automatically stuck in freeze and hide because sometimes you need to bite. So it's recognizing that you want to be a good person and saying, that's an unmeetable requirement because yet it doesn't allow for circumstances. My husband was reading something in the news about some guy he's I think it's in the Philippines. I think he's like the government of the Philippines. He's in charge, and apparently he's slaughtering drug dealers. Now, the challenging part about this is that they aren't getting a trial. The cops are just going in and shooting people. And there's a downside to that because, we'd like to believe in due process and fair trials and stuff. And I thought, well, maybe the situation is so out of control that he needs the crazy. I'm not saying I agree with him. I don't have enough information to evaluate this. But it's like if he's got a situation where the country is so out of control, he thinks the only way to deal with it is just kill all the drug dealers. Maybe maybe it's that bad. I don't know. And all I could think was everybody's condemning this guy for his actions. And what if it's the only solution he can see? Does that make him a bad guy or does that make him a hero? We don't know. I'm not saying we should know. I'm just saying it's interesting because we don't think, oh, well, shooting everybody is a viable solution. Just shooting them because I think we should, like that is like we don't think of that as a viable solution because we want to be good people. How much it is how much of that is based in you're not supposed to bite. So always what I'm looking for is reclaim your ability to bite and then decide, is this the moment? Have the ability to buy the axe. And does that mean you're going to murder people with it? You can decide. I want you to have the ability to have the axe and to be able to use it. It's up to you whether this is a moment that makes it appropriate to use it. And that's something you have to take responsibility for figuring out. Because having the power comes with responsibility. Margot says, I've been shocking out, not sure what chasm's done, but I'm lying in my zero gravity chair in my jammies. Good for you. And that's about allowing yourself to recognize how tough this is. Because, we don't tackle the easy stuff here. We go after the stuff. Like I deliberately go after the stuff that I think you're not going to get to on your own. I deliberately go after the stuff I think you need help with. Now, does that mean that after December, when, basically I'm gone, you could never do this again? No, it doesn't mean that at all. You know what it means? It means you'd have to do it in smaller pieces. You'd have to take smaller steps to get there because I tend to do it with sticks of dynamite up your ass. That's me. It doesn't have to be that way. You have the capacity to do this and you can take smaller pieces. And just for the record, like just so you have a sense, like I literally slept all day today getting ready for this. And I mean, I had done a bunch of meditations coming up to this. And then today I slept and I meditated. I slept and I meditated. I alternated. I'd be like meditating for an hour and I sleep for 3 hours and then meditate for another hour and sleep for 3 hours. And I thought, and I was on my way over to Judy's and I thought, oh crap, what are we doing? This is going to be intense if I had to have all that sleep. you know, Judy said, thanks a lot, because she's at work all day. It's like, but this is my job. It's my job to hold this energy and to hold this space so you can do the intense version. It doesn't have to be this way. You can take little tiny steps. That's okay. Little tiny steps are just fine. And medium steps are fine. And big steps are fine. And all dense steps are fine. Whatever works. It's allowing yourself to discover what you need. Allowing yourself to discover what you need. It's like Margot said, so I'm going to lie here in my jammies and let it cook. And that's the way to do it. Let it cook. And it's cool that you're shocking out. That's it. And I would say a big piece of that is because you're not sure about the strategy. So there's 2 books. One is back in the 70s, the Dale Carnegie book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's sold second only to the Bible. And then the sort of more current version of that is by Robert Greene with an E, and it's called The Art of Seduction. Not sex seduction, but like it's how to make people like you kind of thing. And so the thing about those is those are books that are about how to understand how people tick and how to manage that. So The Art of Seduction is all about, like, if you're having a conversation with people, if you want them to like you, here's how you do it. It's a formula. It's pretty simple. And learning that builds your confidence in your ability to cope with situations. In the past, the only choice you had was to freeze. So, if somebody's being a dick and attacking you, you will have more tools in your arsenal about how to respond to that, about what it is, about like how you can deal with it. Because it's not like we're taught this stuff. So you want to learn about influence. So The Art of Seduction and How to Win Friends and Influence People, those are books about influence. You want to learn about negotiation so that you can, the beauty about learning negotiation skills is that you can recognize the parry, recognize the repartee, recognize when you're being attacked. Pat says, little tiny steps at 72. No, thanks. What you just said is I refuse to be gentle with myself. So why you can't be gentle with yourself because you're 72? I'm not buying that. I don't like that. What if it's okay to be gentle with yourself? What if little tiny steps are perfect? If that's what you need today, do it. Do the little tiny steps. Take care of you. Linda says, I have been taught to never, ever bite. As an adult, I know I want to bite, but I either nip or I chew the hand off. Either way, I'm judged. So finding the real me is tough. It is. It's tough because you were taught not to bite. You want to be able to bite. And what you actually need is strategy. You need strategy. So learning a game like Coup is perfect because it's all about, in Coup you have different characters, and I'm not going to get into too much, but it's like you're either playing this character or you're playing the other character, and the characters all have strengths and challenges. And as you work with it, what character you're using changes by the cards moving around. And you're learning, I can use this strength like this. This one is I counteract this challenge like this. And it's fascinating how, you pick up a card and go, oh, now I have to work with this strength and this challenge. And your mind has to adapt to that quickly because it's a card game. And it's fascinating. It's just fascinating to watch this. And of course, needless to say, Andrew is like, born for this kind of stuff. It's crazy to watch him do it. Because I think it's interesting. He was given permission. I gave him permission to be strategic really early, and he figured it out. And it's not like I taught him strategy, because I got to tell you, when he was a little kid, I didn't know any strategy, very little, so he mostly had permission to figured it out on his own. The key is that he did figure it out because he had permission. So he excels at stuff like this. And nobody will play things like Monopoly or Risk or whatever. Nobody will play with them because it's a waste of time. You may as well just hand them, like, you won, just give up. Like, I'm not going through this. This is a new game, so he's having fun because people are figuring it out, and he gets to not win all the time because he's figuring it out too. Ha ha. We need to play to learn. And so a game like this gives you a venue to play and learn so you can build the muscle. And I mean, as children, we learn through play. Well, we can still learn through play. So you can read the books about strategy and you can read the books about negotiation, and you can play the game. because playing the game gives you a chance to act it, which is totally different than just reading it. Reading it doesn't give you practice. Playing the game gives you practice. All right, so let's go back and look at all of these parts of yourself that have been soaking. And let's see, are there any requirements that are popping up for me that are jumping out? So the be nice requirement is a big deal. Marie says, yes, I'm right. Of course I'm right. I just can't meet the bite. Well, that's okay. It's exactly the same as eating chips. You just have to tell the truth. I'm not ready to meet the bite. So therefore I am letting people bite me. And you just have to tell the truth about that, because at some point you're going to decide, yeah, I'm done with that. I don't want to do it anymore. Don't beat yourself up, because again, these are coping mechanisms that are hardwired. Getting to a place of choice is a challenge. If it was easy, we wouldn't need to do it here. I do the tough stuff, right? If it was easy, you'd already have it figured out. And I'm giving you homework. I'm saying you need to learn more about strategy. You need to practice. Like, you could play chess. I hate playing chess. I hate it. But it's very good because it's a game of strategy, and it teaches you to think, 10 moves ahead, or, whatever. We don't like it. Like, I bet you, like, if you think of your attitude towards playing chess is exactly the attitude towards learning strategy. You go, I don't like chess. I don't like it. It's a war game. It is a war game. Yes, and we don't want it because we don't want to learn strategy. We're much more comfortable in hiding. We are. Okay, that's okay. You don't have to like chess. Do you like hiding? And this says, so I hide. If I never bite, people like me. If I bite, people don't like me. Fact. If you bite, they're not going to like you. Okay, so now it's, what effect do you want to have? Because you can be strategic and you can have the effect, and either they won't even know they've been bitten, or, the reality is sometimes it's okay if they don't like you. So I was telling the story about this employee, and it's literally, what effect do you want to have? Because sometimes it's the appropriate thing to confront the employee and say, okay, you lied, basically either smarten up or get fired. And sometimes it's recognizing they were hungry for status and that's why they did this. So you need to address the underlying problem, because this is just a symptom. And they're a good employee in other ways. So, how do you manage this? And this is the challenge, is how do you manage it? And it's about learning the strategy, learning to play chess, learning to take the steps that 5 steps out will lead to something different, right? We don't like long-term plans. We don't like that. We don't like to play chess. And yet playing chess is really, really good for learning strategy. Margot says, just learning about those characters in the game would be learning. Give ideas of possibilities and possibilities of potential strategy. Yes. And the expanded game, so there's a basic game and then the expanded game for more people. You can play the expanded game with less people. It just adds a layer of complexity. I think you need to learn the basic game and feel comfortable with it and feel like you kind of got your chops with it before you even try to add that other layer of complexity that makes the strategy more complicated. Excuse me. And then there's chess. Like, you can, if you want to start on your own, you can learn about chess. You can read about how to play chess. There's all kinds of, like, there's known strategies about playing chess. It's complicated, right? People read books about, and they say, somebody makes a move and they go, oh, you're using this strategy. Really? But the fundamental thing is, chess is about learning to think 10 moves ahead. If I do this, they'll do that, then they'll this, then they'll that. Like, we don't like that. We don't like thinking strategically. But how much of that is because you were taught not to bite? Pat says, playing is not something I have much experience with or I'm comfortable with. No shit, because we're taught not to play. We're taught that everything you do has to be useful. Well, I'm telling you, this play is useful. This play is very important. because it's a way to practice. And you've been taught not to bite since you were an infant. And so now what you have to do is, in order to give yourself the capacity to bite, you actually have to learn how to deal with it. Because as Linda said, she said, I either hide or I rip their hand off, bite their hand off, and that doesn't give me good results. Well, okay, you need strategy so that having the capacity to bite doesn't sabotage you, doesn't cause you to be putting yourself in a position that you didn't want to be in. Because in the end, what we want is to choose our effect. It's to choose our effect. That's it. Always about learning about strategy is about the capacity to choose your effect. That's it. That's it. Okay. Okay. Lots of light. So think about acceptance. All of these pieces of you that were in the chasm, or may even still be in the chasm, it's all about you giving them acceptance, approval, and love. Because they're in there because they felt unacceptable. They felt that who they are had to hide. Margot says chess is boring because it's not about people. The game you spoke about strategy, about people and the situation. Cool. Yeah, that's the game I would be interested in. Not that I can have more than 2 people in my home. Well, here's the thing. Chess can be boring because it's not about people, or it can be a way to learn to interact with people. If you get good at playing chess, then you can get good at having more people. Think of it that way, because the whole point of learning chess and learning to see the implication, this person makes this move, here's what that means 5 steps out. Learning to do that, learning to understand those steps is teaching you the dance that allows you to be safe having people in your home. So we don't like chess? Absolutely, we don't like chess because we have been taught to hide. So I want you to think about the fact that you don't like chess is because you're conditioned to hide. Yeah, exactly. So think about whether you're willing to have other options besides freeze and hide. Are you willing to have other options besides freeze and hide? And think about the fact that biting someone's hand out means you've been cornered. If someone puts their hand out and you bite it, that means you've been cornered. You're like the rat that's been backed into a corner and you snap and you bite. That's still freeze and hide. That's an extreme of freeze and hide, right? It looks like you're fighting because you bit, but you only bit because you were in the corner. So really, the question you're asking yourself is, do you want a different choice available? You don't have to make the choice. It's like the chips. You don't have to give up chips. Have chips if you want chips. Just tell the truth about why you're having them. You're having chips because you feel like you can't meet the requirements. Okay, that's okay. Today I can't meet the requirements. And when I'm ready, I'll think about it. And when I'm ready, I'll ask myself, what am I telling myself I have to be that's hurting me? What am I telling myself I have to be that's hurting me? Nice is one of them. Good girl is one of them. That doesn't mean that you have to turn into a bitch. And okay, we can all be bitches. But it's always about giving yourself the capacity to choose. It's always about giving yourself the capacity to choose. The more you have the skills to manage how you interact with people, the more you can allow yourself to have an option besides being backed into a corner, besides biting. Pat says, did I learn to play chess Or did I learn to see 10 steps ahead another way? I don't play chess and I hate it. And I'm very aware that I hate it because I'm much more comfortable doing freeze and hide. Andrew sees 10 steps ahead. I don't. I will get information, like it downloads for me. So for instance, when I was having this conversation with this, we both knew this girl had lied. And I opened my mouth and okay, here's what you do. Bloop. And I thought, oh, that's a good idea. But it came through me. It didn't come from me. So I learn as I go. Um, when I played this game Coup with the boys, the first time I played it, I really didn't like it because it's like people are lying and they're like, you have the card that's the character. Well, you can pretend you have a different card that's a different character, and it's up to you whether you challenge them or not. It's, do you challenge them and call them out? If you call them out, you're wrong. And it's complicated that way to me. It sounds, it's a simple game, but because it's all based on strategy, you have all kinds of options. So if somebody says, oh, I'm a duke, and you say, well, I don't think you're a duke. I don't think that's the card you have a choice. You can call them out and you might be right or wrong, and there's consequences to both. And that's okay. That's part of the game. It's just watching myself squirm because I don't want to call anybody out, but that's how you play the game. And so it took me like 3 games before I got comfortable even with how the game played, because I was taught to be a good girl too. Once I figured it out, I won, because once I figured it out, I won. And that's okay. But I was very uncomfortable in the process. And it's going to take me a while playing this game to get comfortable. Linda says I should write a book on strategy. No, I think Andrew should write the book on strategy, because I tell you, he breathes the stuff. And part of that is in, like, The Science of No is a book about strategy. Vulnerable is a book about strategy, because they're all about understanding. Like, The Science of No is all about understanding how to define yourself, because that's where you have to start. Like, you can't be strategic if you don't know who you are, because in order to be strategic, you have to have a goal. You have to have an outcome that you want to achieve. If you don't know who you are, you have no idea what you want to achieve. So the Science of No is all about saying, this is who I am, and this is the effect I want to have. And then Vulnerable is about how to interact with others and stay true to who you are. And the next book that's going to come out is Wounded, and I'm supposed to edit that this winter when I go south. And that's about how do you define yourself as yourself instead of as a product of your wounds. Marie says, cornered. Yes, that's yeah. It's what it feels like. Yes, exactly. Sarah says, taught that I wanted intelligence. Oh, taught that I wasn't as intelligent as other members of my family, and believed it for a long, long time. And that's how they keep you in seek, right? That's how you're taught. That's you're green boxed. You're green boxed. You're taught to be in seek. You're taught to comply. We did freeze and hide because we didn't see another option. We conformed to requirements because we didn't feel safe stepping away from the requirements. And rebel, which is freeze and hide, doesn't get you out of the tribe. Rebel puts you in freeze and hide. You go into freeze and hide. You go into rebel because you feel like you can't meet the requirements. It cuts you off from resources. This is why I think this is the toughest one. It's the toughest one. So there's overhead to this. And whether you play coup or chess, whether you read books about interacting with others and the skill sets, skills for negotiation, skills for interacting with people, I still don't like to watch con movies like Ocean's 11 and stuff like that. I won't watch them. But they're also movies about strategy, because these con artists are playing on what people are like. They're saying, oh, if they're like that, if this person's like this and I do this step, then they will do that step. A con is a chess game. They move their place pieces, and the other person moves their pieces in response, and the con artist gets the outcome they want or they don't. So a con is a chess game. I really don't like those movies. And that's because I'm more comfortable in freeze and hide. The thing is, we're doing this tonight because all of us are ready to step out. It's fall. It's time to let go. It's time to step into different choices. And I'm playing coup with Andrew, who is also willing to teach me as he goes. Well, if you do it like this, you get this outcome. If you do it like that, you get that outcome. And I sit there and go, how does his brain even see that? And yet he does. And I learn. We can learn. The first step, the first step is to decide to have another option available. How are we doing? We got lots of time. The first step is to decide to have another option available. Because unless you're willing to have another option, you're not going to learn strategy because you're going to be too busy freezing. You won't be able to take in the information because you're stuck in the corner. So now, all of those parts of you that have been holding all of this wounding, let the light pour through them and around them. Let it spin through, let it neutralize. Okay? Anybody who's stuck in the chasm is there because you have a requirement you have not accepted them. So ask yourself, do you want to stay hidden? And maybe you do. It's okay if today, you're not ready for that one yet. That's okay. Just tell the truth. That one's there because I'm not ready. And maybe next week or next month or next year, you will be willing to go back and get them. They've been hidden this long, you know? Like you've had these pieces of you disconnected for this long. It'll be okay. You're making huge strides just being here, just doing this, and just bringing it to your awareness. Being aware that these wounds exist is step one. And ask yourself, are you willing to have another option available? Because the whole point of a polar split is you got A or B and there's no other option. So the whole point of releasing polar splits is to make more choices available, to give yourself the whole continuum. So now, check on your chasm, see how it's doing, pour more light into it. Is it ready to close? Some of them are, some of them aren't. That's okay. Just keep pouring more light on the situation because in the end, the thing that makes it shift is your decision to make it different. I'm ready. I'm ready to have another option. I'm ready to be really good at this game. I'm ready to be strategic. So it's funny because, compared, I don't know, out of 100 people you found on the street, I'm probably more strategic than a lot of them. I still don't consider myself an expert because I have this son who's just gifted at it. Now, the fun part is he says I taught him everything he knows, and that's absolutely not true. What I did was I gave him an opportunity, and I didn't hold him back with my fears. So I've evolved over the years a lot. He has a natural gift for strategy, just natural. Okay, that's better. Lots of comfort, lots of acceptance, lots of approval, and lots of love. And remember, your entire life you've been told these parts of you are not acceptable. So there's the part of you that's going, I can't love this part of me because it's unacceptable to the tribe. That's where the strategy comes in. So you can be whoever, you can be your inner axe murderer, and it's up to you to decide how to interact with the world and what they see. You decide how the world will see you. You decide the effect that you're going to have. And you decide whether you want the consequences of, smiting someone with your axe. The question is, are you willing to be in a position to decide. I choose to decide. I choose to have the capacity to choose. The power position on the triangle, the power position that's often labeled villain, is the ability to impose my will. The ability to impose my will. That's the power position on the triangle. That's also in the Science of Notebook, all that triangle stuff. So coming into your power is about having the capacity to choose, the ability to oppose your will. Being strategic, sometimes they don't even know you're doing it. Linda says, part of the challenge is that you think freeze and hide is who you are because you have done it for so long. That's it exactly. That's it. It's the only thing you know. And so stepping into something it's very uncomfortable. That's why we don't like chess. We don't like it. Margot said, I don't like it because it's not about people. Sure it is. All the characters on the board are people. You play a game with somebody else, it's the people you play with. We don't like it because it contradicts what we've been told to be. And we've been told to freeze and hide. Linda says, I want to get to who I really am. And that is scary because it's an unknown. Yeah, it is. That's why I sometimes think that the small steps are better, because if you try to take giant leaps, you just knock yourself back into freeze and hide. And that's not useful. It's okay to take little tiny steps. And I don't care how old you are. If little tiny steps are what you need, that's taking care of you. And trying to badger yourself into big steps, that's not helping. Pat asks, is one swimming? Yes, absolutely. Swimming in the light is a good thing, though. So she needs you to toss her a line, and the line has to be pure acceptance. Pure acceptance, not any conditions. Just this is who you are, that's okay. And then we'll choose how to behave. So we keep going back to this. Is like we all have the whole deck of cards. Everybody's got an inner ex murderer. Everybody's got a pervert. Everybody's got all of these nasty, nasty things we're told are not acceptable. And it's having the potential is not the same as acting from it. Everybody can be perverted, and it's up to you if you want to. There's lots of kinky sex clubs out there. You can find them. The thing is, it's who do you choose to be? The same part of you that's the inner pervert is also sensuous, is also curious and exploring. The same part of you that's an ex murderer is also capable of great strategy. So it's allowing yourself to say, I need all of my parts available so that I can actually choose. If they're not available, I don't have a choice. I can only be this Swiss cheese version of myself. So we want all of the parts available. And then we decide. Then we decide. We decide the effect we want to have. We decide the life we want to live. That's it. Light through all of these versions of yourself. Now, the ones that are accessible, let's let them evolve. Let's let the light evolve them. And that's a little bit more challenging with these guys than it was the previous time because you've been taught so much that these parts are so not acceptable. So lots of approval, lots of acceptance, lots of love. And remember, accepting the axe murderer doesn't mean you have to kill people. Accepting the axe murderer is giving you those capacities, and you can then choose how you behave. When you make a shift like this, you might want to pay attention, especially like in the next month, to saying, okay, let's just pause before I act because I've got a whole new set of stuff available to me. So, you don't want to be chopping off people's hands at work or at the family dinner or whatever. Just be aware that because you've made new things available, you kind of need to pause and think before you act. And that's okay because that's part of the evolution. It's part of learning to be strategic. Just give yourself space to accommodate these new parts of yourself that you're integrating. So get them all evolved. Get them all evolved. That's it. And then the ones that are ready to integrate, get them to integrate. And the ones that are not, like, leave everybody cooking in the light. That's okay. Come and get them when you're ready. And you can set it up and say, you know what, just integrate them in the background. Like, it's like a background process. Just do it when it's ready. Let the light do the work. All right. So now check and see, is there anybody kind of left that needs attention? You might have to ask them questions, ask them what they need, ask them what requirement they're holding for you. Remember that younger versions of yourself don't have the perception you have now. So you could have a 5-year-old, for instance, that took on a requirement of being nice. Well, their idea of being nice at 5 is not the same as your idea of being nice at your age. And so if you say, well, what's the requirement? And they say, well, it's to be nice. And you go, okay, well, we don't have to do that anymore because we're going to be strategic instead. That doesn't mean anything to a 5-year-old. So what you can do is say, I'll take care of it. You're safe with me. The 5-year-old is not the one to make a decision about how to be strategic as an adult. So for her, it's like, you're good. You're good the way you are. Okay. You're good the way you are. I'll take care of it. I love you, period. And bring them in. Judy says, I'm getting this picture of one who wants to pick her nose in public, which is it's a laugh. So did you know that, there are lots of countries in the world where that's a perfectly acceptable behavior? And most of them don't have Kleenex readily available. So like it's considered normal social behavior to pick your nose in public. Ew. And we only think it's ew because we were taught that it's not acceptable. It is natural. It is natural. So it's okay if she wants to pick her nose in public. It's up to you to say, is that the effect you want to have? Because it's going to have an effect. She can pick her nose in the campfire. That's it. That's it. That's it. Lots of acceptance, lots of approval, lots of love. And then you own the driver's seat, so you choose the behavior. You're not giving up your driver's seat. That's a key piece here. You own the driver's seat. And it's about paying attention. When we integrate these new pieces, well, okay, they're not new pieces, they're old pieces, but as you reintegrate them, as you make them available, it's about you being aware of making choices constantly, because there's some adjustment when you bring in these new pieces. So let them integrate. And whoever's left, set them up with lots of light so that, you can either come back for them or you can integrate them as they're ready. And then let's step away and go over to the waterfall, because I think we need a couple of minutes in the waterfall tonight. Let's go over to the waterfall. Let the water flush through you and over you. Let it flush through your crown, all the way through you, wash out whatever needs to go, and let it wash through all of the versions of you, like the Russian doll stacked up ones. Let it wash through all of them. Let the light flush whatever needs to go. All right, so while we're sitting here, or standing there in the waterfall, I'm going to start next month going through the list of all the people in the group and just doing the here's the words that I get for you, because that feels like the right thing to do. And I'm not convinced December is going to happen, because every time I look at it, it's like, I don't know. I mean, we have one scheduled. Who knows? Okay. Who knows? Who knows? But so what I'm doing is starting in November, I'm going to do the like, this is the message I get. This is the sentence I get. I don't control that. You know that. Um, and every message I get will be for everybody because that's how it works. It always is. So we'll start that next month and we'll see what happens in December. I don't know. Maybe it'll be something unexpected. Maybe it'll be something like this that I have no idea is coming, which is often the case. Marie said, "Oh my God, Trish, I just saw a number of angels floating out of the chasm. What the hell? Integrate." Marie says, found her. Got it. I'm on this. All right. So you had lots of help, Maurice. They were carrying her out, right? Pat says, I'm liking giving them all unconditional love. It feels good. Yeah, because they've never had it. Hey? They have never had it, and they're you. These are all part of you. Yeah, we're just letting them soak in that waterfall. Okay, so while we're here in the waterfall, release the nested dolls thing. So release all these versions back into your natural state because we were paying attention to them so that we could focus all this healing through them. And that's good. So just kind of relax it to your natural state, release all the nested versions, and just kind of bring your awareness to the present you still in the waterfall. Pat says, do I believe in angels? Yeah, of course I do. I see them all the time. So, okay. The thing about angels is they're not in human form. So one of the challenges when you can talk to them is like they'll say, "Oh, you should do this." Well, yeah, but they're not human, so they don't understand time. They don't understand circumstances. Like they just don't understand. So it's like anything that's a guide. You have to take the information they give you and put it in your own context and make your own choice. Like you're not a victim of your angels either, okay? And you know the greatest gift? Free will. You're meant to make your own choice. It's not like do what your angel says. Like really, seriously, it's not that. And generally speaking, when we go in campfire, because it's sacred and it's meant to be only you don't bring your angels in there with you. This was a situation. Marie's let them in because that part of her needed help. I don't think she was conscious of that decision. The thing is, she made the decision because the angels can't intrude on a sacred space, just like other things can't. So at some point, Marie's made a decision to let them in. That's appropriate. Generally speaking, in campfire, only you. Only you. There you go. Lots of love, lots of acceptance, lots of approval, flushing out whatever needs to go. Yeah, Marie said she wasn't conscious of it. Yeah, yeah, and you don't need to be, you know? It's like, the thing about tools, all of these tools, campfire unlock, all of it, anything, the double balls, all the stuff we do, it's a way of focusing your intent. So you use campfire so you have a methodology to walk you through looking inward. It's still your game. You're the one who decides. Pat says, do I believe in fairies? Yes, I do. In fact, I think a lot of us have fey blood. And yes, the next question is, do I believe in aliens? Yes, I believe in them too. And I believe that we have alien blood in us as well. And I think that somebody argued with me that angels have never been in human form. I don't believe that. I know people who've been angels. I know people, so. But you know what else? You create your own reality. So if you want to create a reality where angels have never been in human form, knock yourself out. It's your reality to create. What I've experienced, I've met angels, I've met them, I've met people who are incarnations, I've met people who think they were incarnations who aren't necessarily um, of angels. I think that everybody in this group has been an angel in some incarnation. We have quite a powerful group, ladies. Okay, so now I think you're ready to focus on coming back from the waterfall. So allow your crown to return to its natural state and bring yourself back along the path. Take your time because we went deep. Allow yourself to come back along the path to the here and now. Come in, be very aware of your body. Wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers. Maybe it's appropriate to stand up and move around a little bit. The thing is, be careful because you could be dizzy. Just be aware. And you need lots of water and lots of protein. Sometimes if you find when you're doing energy work, like sometimes I forget I know stuff, if you're doing energy work and you find like you're drinking water and it's like there's not enough water on the planet and you still feel thirsty, put a little tiny bit of baking soda in it, just something to make it base instead of acidic. Um, and that you'll find that that quenches your thirst. The other thing that like I find I'll have just plain soda water, and that'll quench my thirst, whereas regular water won't. Or put a little lemon juice in it. It's nicer than the baking soda, I admit, because lemon juice will make it base. But like, don't get carried away because it's hard on your teeth. But it's just a little bit. It'll quench your thirst in a way that just plain straight water won't. Um, then you can have water kefir like Judy makes. So when I come over here, I drink it by the gallon. I love it. And okay, okay, we're doing good. So wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, move your face. Just kind of make sure you're actually occupying all of the parts of your skin. And let's do a little bit of cell breathing just to pay attention to being in your skin. So find the light at the center of the cell. That's the life force of the cell. As you breathe in, breathe into the cell. And then as you breathe out, flush. As you breathe in, breathe into the cell. As you breathe out, flush. And then see, can you breathe in all of your cells? And then as you breathe out, flush from all of your cells. And just breathe in and just be really aware of every cell in your body, from your nose to your toes, to your nails, to your ears, your hair, your butt, your organs and your skin and your bones. Just kind of breathe into all that. Breathe into your blood cells, breathe into your connective tissue, and as you breathe out, flush. Just kind of, it's like doing a little inventory to make sure you're connected to all your parts. Good. Okay. All right, so I said what we're going to do next month is I'm going to start going through the list of all the people in the group and just doing the here's your sentence, whatever comes. I don't decide that, and it will be for everybody because it always is. So now let's just take a moment and pay attention to your double balls. Release the inside double ball, the neutralizing one, and then expand your outside double ball, the acceptance, approval, and love one, and put everybody in the group inside it, and just spin it through and around. And this is your practice accepting unconditional love and giving unconditional love. And just let that be with you. Let yourself feel that everybody is giving you this. And let yourself feel that you know how to give this to everybody. Yeah. How cool is that? Let's just sit with that for a moment. Ray says, the angels quite surprised me. I wonder if I call them often. Yeah, I think you do. All right, and now you can either spin the ball down into your heart and hold it, or you can release it, whatever feels right. And then release the cell breathing. Just relax that and release it. And we have had a great night. You guys did amazing work. And remember, you can go back and do some more of this because this was very intense, and you'll go, kind of as where you're willing to go the first time, and you'll go deeper the second time. It doesn't mean you have to, and it's okay for it to be little. Little steps are okay. Linda says, great session. Thanks. You're welcome. Hugs to you too. And yeah, we have great sessions. And pat yourself on the back for that because you're part of that, right? Okay. Good night, everybody.